Well, I'm Cheryl Benton of the Three Tomatoes, and I am so excited to have all of you joining us right now to celebrate Women's History Month. And I can't think of a more fun group of people that I would want to be saying this than with all of you, and also our guest today as well. And please just do me a favor and make sure that you're on mute. I see a couple of you aren't, just so that we can all hear each other better. So again, welcome. We have more people actually coming in, so let me admit a few more people and I'll get started a little bit. So we're going to be honoring women, and definitely all of the crazy women today who are really groundbreakers, and we are going to make crazy less crazy. So let me tell you a little bit about what we mean by crazy. So first of all, hysteria and crazy has been applied to women for centuries, kind of really as a way to put us in our place or put us down. And in fact, in the late 1850s, when the women's rights movement was just getting started, let me just let a couple more people in, they were thought to have hysteria, which was actually a medical condition. It was thought of them. We're going to hear more about that later too. And then fast forward in 1995, Arianna Huffington, when she started to tell people about the new media property she was going to start, there were many in the media business who thought she was crazy. And then fast forward a little more, and there's a scientist whose name is Catalin Carrico, and she was researching a substance. And actually, if you're on, I'm just going to ask you to mute if anybody is not muted, if you can just do that, because I could hear a little background noise, so that would be terrific. So she was actually researching a substance at a major university in the US, and she was told it was a really crazy idea, and she persisted, and then they gave her a smaller lab as a little punishment, and she still persisted, and then they actually fired her. And fortunately, she continued to persist and didn't mind at all being called crazy, because the substance she was working on was mRNA, and that led to two of the major vaccines that we have today. So women who make history have actually always been thought of as a little crazy. And now we want to start off with the video that we all really like, and it's about crazier.
If we show emotion, we're called dramatic. If we dream of equal opportunity, we're delusional. When we're too good, there's something wrong with us. And if we get angry, we're hysterical, irrational, or just being crazy. But a woman running a marathon was crazy.
Officials tried to pull her off the course.
A woman boxing was crazy. A woman dunking, coaching an NBA team, landing the impossible, or winning 23 Grand Slams, having a baby, and then coming back for more. Crazy, 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 and crazy. So if they want to call you crazy, fine. Show them what crazy can do.
Well, that's so great. And that's the kind of crazy women that we are talking about today. And it's a wonderful commercial from Nike. And by the way, they are not sponsoring this event, although I truly wish they were. And if they would like to at some time in the future, that would be wonderful. So now I want to introduce you to the fabulous women I have joining me today. And I want to start first with the Know You're Crazy team, and you'll hear more about them. But we have Vivienne Boucherat, who is a visual artist and a musician from London. And she's waving. And then we have Cindy De Silva. She is an artist manager who represents rock groups, including the Zombies. And there is actually a connection here with all of them, which you'll hear about. And Rene Harbison is the head of a Texas-based production and consulting company. And together they have created this wonderful, powerful little art book that has a very big message, and it's becoming a movement. And you're going to be hearing a lot more about this book and the movement too. Then we have our friend, Dr. Robi Ludwig. She's been a great friend of the Three Tomatoes for many years. In fact, I was just thinking today, Robi, I think our last live event, remember those people, was our renewal summit, which we do every spring. Last year it was virtual, but the last live one, you were our keynote speaker. So Dr. Robi is a nationally known psychotherapist. She's an award-winning reporter. She's appeared on broadcast media since 1997. I know you've all seen her in so many different places, and she is very sought out for her psychological insights on a wide range of topics. And then my last guest today is Maya Azucena. She is a magnetically inspired woman. She is known for making music that uplifts the soul, and also for her humanitarian outlook and projects around the globe, which include a special focus on women's and youth empowerment, and also around domestic and sexual violence. So thank you, ladies, for being here today to celebrate Women's History Month. So I want to start with our Know You're Crazy team. And today's event is actually inspired by their book called Know You're Crazy, and it features 61 images that were created by Vivienne. Vivienne, I'm going to actually put you into the spotlight now. And you call these your little mad women, and you've been creating them for many, many years. So tell us about the Mad Women first.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for inviting us, Cheryl. Yes, I've been doing these drawings for decades, and really they've been my own personal therapy. I'm sure Dr. Robi will know, visualizing anything that might be bugging you. It's not a new idea, but I've been making these drawings since my late teens, early 20s, and they felt like externalizing the little mad women that were running around my head but had nowhere to go. And I found that once they were on paper, I could get a little bit of distance from them and get a bit of perspective, and either just have a laugh at them and forget them, or maybe realize that I need to take action on something or have a chat with somebody. But you know, this is how they've developed through the years. A lot of them get thrown away. They're in all sorts of mediums. There's watercolors and inks and prints and collages and cutouts, makeup sticks, whatever's to hand, really. And some of them get worked up into bigger pictures.
Oh.
Well, we love them, and they're absolutely brilliant. And as we said, you've been creating them for many, many years, but it actually took a visit to your studio by Cindy that started to spark this as a creative endeavor. So Cindy, tell us the story of how this came about. And Cindy, you have to unmute.
Sorry, I was just thinking about how, never mind. Anyway, yeah, I was visiting Viv because she also happens to be married to one of my clients. Chris White is her husband, who is one of the original zombies. And so we ended up touring together. We ended up, she was singing background vocals for us on a tour, and she and I became friends. And I brought her in to do some art for the Zombies book that we put out in 2016, 15, something, I don't know. Anyway, we ended up collaborating on that, and her work was so beautiful. So actually we were going to come in and do some more things together, and I was at her studio, and suddenly out of the corner of my eye, I caught this piece of art, and it just was like, what is that? And she said, that's one of my mad women. And I go, what do you mean? And she said, well, that's Bad Hair Day. And as a woman, I mean, my hair is everything. It's it's one of those things.
And Bad Hair Day is on the cover of the book too.
Yeah. So I knew all about that, you go to a show in the morning, I'm there all day. So I'll start off with a good hair day. And by the end of the night, I'm like, and then, your confidence kind of goes out the window. All kinds of things happen. So I said to myself, oh, wow, this is really great. And she said, well, let me show you some others. And as she's showing them to me and we're like laughing and talking and everything, I just immediately thought, this is great. If I feel it immediately, then I know that other women are going to feel this as well. And it's a great conversation starter, And so I said to her, we have to make a book. And she goes, book, really? And I'm like, yeah, we have to make a book. And I said, it needs to be something that's accessible. Maybe, we started talking about sizes and stuff, and we wanted it to be like this little thing that you could just pick up any time of the day and kind of scroll through and go, okay, this is what's bothering me today, kind of thing, but that's kind of where it sat. And she put a mock-up together, and it was in the back of my mind, and I was so busy with all the stuff with bands and managing, and touring and everything. And it wasn't really moving forward until I went to Austin, and I had lunch with my good friend Rene. And I said to her, it's funny because we tend to talk a lot, but not really get to certain things. So we talked a lot about many things, but we never said, hey, Rene, what do you actually do for a living? And we never got to that. And I knew in the back of my head that she did marketing for companies and she produced things, but that was about it. And so when I started telling her about Viv's Mad Women and how I wanted to make a book, she was like, I do that. I can help you. So I'll pass it off to Rene.
Yeah, so then you brought Rene in. So we now have the trio involved in this. So Rene, tell us how you felt when you first saw the images and why they resonate with you so much and why you wanted to get involved with this project.
Yes, thanks, Cheryl. So I first saw the images in London in Viv's studio. Cindy and Viv and I were all there. Cindy had gotten married in the UK, and we had planned to meet back up in London a few days later, which we did, so that I could see Viv's art. And because I work in marketing and design and art, I live by the old theory that great design and great art should stun you a little bit. It should really take you back and just make you think. If it's really good, you should go, wow, and just kind of stun you a bit and think about it. So as we were in her studio, I was flipping through all of the pieces of art. They were off to the side visiting. And as Cindy said, they had talked about doing a little small handheld book, maybe that you could pick up at a grocery store, like, the diet books or something. This would be like emotions. And after I saw the art, I was like, I need to think about this. I am so all in this, but it needs to be something more. It needs to be bigger. And I talked to them about what demographic they wanted and what was what was their idea and who did they want this to resonate with? And fortunately, it's resonated way beyond that demographic. But, and then I took it and we came back to Austin and studied on it and thought about it and talked to my team about it. And then we came up with a whole new kind of idea that I did in secret until I presented it back to Viv and Cindy again months later at the Met in New York. So, and we can talk about that later when we talk about the box.
Yeah, that's going to be so great. But the book itself, it's this beautiful little book, but it's produced on museum quality paper. Every image is just stunning. And now we're actually going to share some of the images with you, because what I did was I asked each one of our Know You're Crazy team to pick two of the images that really resonate with them and to tell us about them. And we're going to start with Vivienne. Vivienne, you're muted. You have to unmute.
You'd be thinking I'd get used to this by now. Yes, this is one of my favorites, actually. I think it, as human beings, I think this is part of our makeup. Without it being a pun, I think it's anything stretching from using makeup to using any part of ourselves, any tool that we can use to interact in our daily situations. It may be using makeup, or it may be employing our inner actor to smooth over troubled waters, or make an experience more pleasant or easier for people. It's a sort of a fake it till you make it thing. It can be any situation that you're in, whether you're going for an interview, or whether you're going on stage, or whether you're just going out to meet new people, or doing a Zoom, or anything like that. You know, it's what we present to the world. It's probably magnified 100 times with social media, but it's part of us. It's part of our, sometimes it's armor, sometimes it's protection, sometimes it's a barrier, but usually it's just to do with our interface. This one, tidying up, again, as I'm sure that Dr. Robi will know, that it's not a new idea, that as well as being a physical thing, I've certainly got a room like this where you shove everything in and turn off the light and close the door, and everything piles in and piles on top of each other. You forget things, they're in there for years and years. You forget they were ever there. But this is also a mental thing that we do, I think, with ourselves, that we put into little discrete boxes in our brains and forget about them. When the door opens for whatever reason, or you open it yourself, there are usually a fair amount of things that you have to deal with. It can be pleasant, it can be unpleasant, but I think that this is our tidying up, and it seems to be, it's not only a female thing, of course, but I think that we understand, certainly on the physical terms, it's usually a female role, but our tidying up it within ourselves is a very individual thing.
Well, that's great. And I think we're moving over now to Sydney's picks, right?
This is my everyday horror, so to speak. I think the list, you know, because we work with a UK band and we also work with a West Coast artist, you know, from morning to night, I'm constantly making notes and to-do lists and personal to-do lists and house to-do lists and business to-do lists. And, you know, and you're always like struggling and kind of going between lists and rechecking, and I find lists everywhere, and I find that they're, you know, and technology makes it 10 times worse, because I think I look at those, I write it down, I forget about it, I come back to it. But anyway, it's something we all struggle with, or at least I struggle with, and I think about it all the time, and that is my inner mad woman. Today's to-do list is definitely, and every once in a while I go through and I look at all the sticky notes and crumple them up and throw them away and get them out of my life. Or I'll find one thing on there that I still need to do, and I'll rewrite that someplace else.
That sounds very familiar, Sydney. I relate to this one too, I have to say.
My life. Isolation. This is a little bit more of a serious one that we're dealing with here. And I think about it because it's so heightened right now. COVID, I mean, look, I happen to be high risk, so I've been super careful. I think I've left my property 20 times in the past year, if that. I have everything delivered. Amazon is my best friend. you know, the grocery store delivery thing is a beautiful thing. But, you know, it can leave you feeling a bit alone. And, you know, isolation can be something where it can affect you no matter what your situation is. Or, you know, like you can find yourself isolated even with people around. However, seeing other human beings does help. So one of the things that we've done the past 2 semesters is we've actually hired 8 interns. And so seeing their smiling faces as they come into work every day kind of snaps me out of this one, which is really nice. But I feel like it's an important one to think about and talk about at this time because, like I said, it is such a heightened feeling right now during COVID. And so I just thought it was worth mentioning, you know, sometimes you put up your own barbs, other times, you know, situations around you put them up, but like isolation is a serious matter.
Thank you for sharing that, Sydney. That's such an important topic, especially these days. So now I want to move over to Rene. You're going to share a couple of your favorites, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love Seen and Unseen for a lot of reasons. But here we are celebrating Women's History Month. And I would venture to say that most women have felt this at some point in their life, all the way back to teenage years, where you walk in a room and you have something to say. And I'm a bit of a disruptor myself. So this happens to me where I am like thought of as crazy. And so it's like, just don't listen to her. You know, so you get that unseen feeling. You're like, I think I just said something and nobody even heard what I said. And with that, we have a little book club for this book. And this came up recently in a discussion unintentionally. And it was about how women are treated in the presence of men, often in a boardroom, et cetera, to where what you have to say is a little bit unimportant or appears to be unimportant. So again, you're unseen. So this is obviously my interpretation of Viv's art. It's always hard to do that because, you know, it won't be what she was thinking, I'm sure. But and then the scene part is
I love one of the interpretations.
Okay, good. The scene part is just will kind of speak to my next image as well, because I feel like you have to be confident and sure. And when you walk out of your home as a female and you're looking good and you're feeling good and you're like, damn, I've got it going on today. I'm feeling good. And even if you're not seen, you feel like you are, because so much of it comes from within, and your security level and your confidence level, which can change at any hour or any day, you know, for various reasons. And so Pam, if you go to the next one, I think it speaks to this. So we all need to just, you know, care for ourselves and feel seen, see ourselves and see our own crazy and know our own crazy and embrace it, because we need ourselves to be able to walk out and be seen in whatever we may be doing any given day.
Well,
So
that is
interpretations of Viv's art.
Yeah, that is so terrific. And I'm so glad that you all shared this, and everyone here today. Those are just 6 of the 61 incredible images. And as you can see, I don't know anyone who has not picked up this book and found something that has really resonated with them or spoke to them. And I know Vivienne doesn't like to say the meetings because she wants, as an artist, she wants everyone to take what they're getting from it. And it's done this so well. But Vivienne, did you ever expect the kind of response that you're getting around this book? And I know you're getting amazing press everywhere. So tell us a little bit about that, and why do you think people are responding to the book?
Well, it has been extraordinary. The feedback has been extraordinary. If it wasn't for Cindy and Rene, this book wouldn't exist. I never had the intention of making a book. So the fact that it's out there is thanks to these two. But the demographic has been quite surprising. I've heard from 14-year-olds and 90-year-olds. So that's quite wide. When we first started on the project, I assumed that people who were sort of, postmenopausal like myself would get it, look at any picture in there and get it. And I knew that women would see funny things in it. I had no idea how universal things would be until when Cindy picked it up, and it has become this thing. And like you say, it's become more than a book. It's becoming a bit more like a movement. It struck me that it's almost like it's like a picture book for adults, I think, because it's picture. It sort of jumps over all of the language barriers, even if we're speaking the same language, we're still trying to describe something that we're feeling, and often those feelings don't have words. And so I think that just seeing a picture makes it simpler for people, and it has started off some great conversations that couldn't have been started off anyhow else. It's a very simplistic way of looking at it, I think, but I think that's maybe what resonates with people is the simplicity.
Yeah. And it taps into so many emotions that we've all felt. A lot of it is also our inner critic, which you're going to be talking about that too. Women are, we really pick on ourselves a lot, for sure. So now I want to move over to our psychotherapist, Dr. Robi Ludwig, to help us out with a little bit. So I'm so happy you're here, Robi. So first of all, let's talk about the crazy thing, and in terms of how it's been used for centuries to describe women. And as I mentioned earlier, hysteria even used to be a medical condition. So, and it had some crazy treatments too. Crazy in the crazy sense treatment. So tell us a little bit about this, and unmute first though. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was doing some fascinating research on hysteria, and it was actually the first psychiatric diagnosis. And it goes back like in BC, where like even Plato was weighing in on what was causing female hysteria. And it comes from the Greek word, which is like, I wrote it down here because I don't speak Greek, but it's hysteria. Basically it's uterus. So when you think about hysterectomy, it comes from the root. And the old thinking was that a female who was hysterical, there was a medical issue with her womb, that her womb was wandering all around her body, creating this emotional and physical reaction. And I think we see it too historically, and it still haunts us today when it comes to people choosing to go for therapy or to get psychiatric help, that there were two reasons for someone being in a hysterical state. It was either psychiatric, something medical, or it was demonic. And when you think about a lot of the witches that were killed and, the awful deaths that they had to experience, probably a lot of them were having some kind of psychiatric illness that was misunderstood. And then over time, I just thought it was so interesting that Plato and these like really famous, thought leaders thought that women's uteruses, it was almost personified, the uterus would get sad when it couldn't meet with a male and produce a child. And so the woman would just have all of these reactions. And it wasn't until Freud. So I think at one point, It was both males would have it less commonly than women. But Freud really changed this idea and really saw a woman who was hysterical, as this being a female disorder that was related to not having enough sex, having too much sex. And it was basically a psychosomatic disorder, which meant that people were having these physical symptoms that were not based on anything physical. It was based on their mind. And there was along the way this pejorative idea where women were being judged as what they were experiencing was not really credible, was not really real. It was all in their head. And we obviously know since then that what goes on in our head is very powerful and it influences our body, and that there is no separation between the two. And it wasn't really until 1980 that the hysterical conversion was eliminated from the DSM-3. So they took out the first part in the 50s and then finally took it out in the 80s. And feminists along the way wanted to reclaim this idea that the reason why women were quote unquote crazy is because they were being oppressed by society and culturally and weren't allowed to express themselves. So, I mean, I think it's just so interesting when we look at history and we look at how women are perceived. And I really do believe that women are so, so powerful. And we often don't recognize our power in the feminine energy. We see men as being powerful. And I think over time, women try to embrace male traits to show that they were, in fact, powerful and successful. But women just being women is usually powerful. And I think men trying to see women in this hysterical state, it was a way for them to deal with their discomfort, because women give birth. You know, we are mothers. We are very powerful in terms of influencing the mood in the room and everyone around us. And this pejorative term, I think, is a way for women to internalize this self-marginalization, where we don't really validate ourselves. And what happens when we don't validate ourselves and we don't validate our emotions? We do get sick. We do become depressed, more anxious, more isolated. And, you know, if we look at this just in terms of now and women and how they experience their own feelings, I hope what they'll take away is, obviously it's not because of a wandering womb as thought by Plato and other thought leaders at the time, but when we are not understood, being misunderstood is a really big trigger for us as women. And if we can find a way to connect with others and find that mutual validation and support, it's really life-changing in terms of our mental health.
Well, Robbie, that is so great. And what a great history of hysteria too, that you just took us through. And
Thank you.
yeah, and I love that about not being misunderstood. And I think that's so important. And a lot of that too, I think, comes with this whole inner critic thing. And there's several of the mad women in Vivienne's book that really speak to that. And I think there's probably every one of its call has had that inner critic. You know, she kind of sits on your shoulder and she's sort of that mean girl or the bitch, and you know, she's like always putting you down. In fact, I think my friend Deborah Goldstein is on here too, and she's talked about taming your inner critic, and she actually gave hers a real name so that she can kind of talk to her and get her off the shoulder, which I love that idea. But what is it about, and I think it's women more than men, it seems to me, with that inner, what is it about that, and how do we tame her?
So we all have the inner critic. It's the part of our brain, the super ego, which is the judgy part of our brain that internalizes cultural ideas, it internalizes messages that our parents sent us, how we experienced ourselves along the way. And it's a running commentary that in many ways is unavoidable. What I tell patients is that there's a lot of noise in our head, and you can't believe everything you think, and feelings are not facts. So that's number one. And there's been a new focus on cognitive therapy that basically gets us or encourages us to look at our thoughts and then to attack those thoughts and say, is this really true, or is this an overreaction? What we know is that there is a negativity bias for all of us. And that happens in terms of what we view and what we watch. Sometimes what's negative is more compelling than what's positive, and the same is true within our own brain. We are designed to have this somewhat negativity set point, in part because it helps us to survive. So it was designed to really help us save ourselves. The problem is it often goes into an overreaction. And so we need to be able to identify, what is our negative thought saying? Like, what is it telling us? And of note, I think a lot of people are experiencing this now because of the pandemic, and we're sitting with ourselves. And that is almost the worst thing you can do. You sit with yourself and you're just going to find the negative. And if you look at the word illness, the main theme is I, right? There's the I in illness. And anytime you can't forget yourself, you're not going to be in a good place. So I think it's important to understand the trigger. What is triggering this negative thought? I'm not good enough. What is triggering that? Does it come from messages you heard from your parents? Does it come from your own insecurity that you have about public speaking, or being considered adequate enough, or not getting the feedback that you actually needed? So to understand what's triggering you, because that can help you prepare yourself. So if you understand your triggers, you could say, oh, this negative thought was triggered by an experience I often had. I know this about myself now. And when I have this negative thought, I could look at it and say, okay, you don't feel good enough. It's a feeling, it's not a fact. What's your plan? So we can use these negative thoughts to help propel us forward or to keep us stuck. And really, that's where the choice comes in. How do you want to use that feeling? Do you want to say, thank you for sharing, and I'm going to stick with my plan? So what's your plan? And your plan is not to act on your feelings, because if we just rely on our feelings, it doesn't work so well. AKA the diet that we rely on for motivation to help us get through all of those lackluster recipes, it's bound to fail. So to make a plan, if you want to get better at something or be kinder to yourself, you have to create a plan that will help you to get to that place. So I think, I don't know if anyone has any questions, Cheryl. I don't want to just drone on and on.
No, that's great advice. And I do have one other thing that I want you to address, because I think it's so important, because today we're using the term crazy, and the book is in terms of, the bad hair days, or someone, calling you crazy as a put down for an idea that you might have. And, it's what all these mad women in the book are about. But we don't want to diminish that there are actually times when our feelings, whether they're these feelings of isolation or low self-esteem, when it really is serious and where it really needs to be recognized, and we might want to reach out for help. So, what's the line there from when you say, this is more than just having a bad hair day?
I came across this great quote recently that said, it's just a bad hair day. It's not a bad life. So if you can somehow understand that you're having a bad hair day, but it doesn't mean your life is entirely bad. We all have bad moments. And I think the problem is, instead of seeing that as normal and natural for us to have a range of emotions, we start to view ourselves as not living life successfully because we consider happy successful. And that's not entirely true either. We need all of our emotions. In general, people choose therapy or should really consider therapy if they're going through a 2-week period of time where they notice a change in their appetite, their sleeping patterns. They can't feel any differently. It's really paralyzing for a long, prolonged period of time that seems atypical for themselves. So that would be the clinical reason to call your doctor and find out what's going on, because at that point you really need a medical professional to weigh in. So you can go to your internist first, you can go to a therapist, you can go to a psychiatrist, just to go out and seek help. In terms of therapy, it's a more nuanced question, because the way I view therapy and the way I recommend therapy, even to my own children, is why wouldn't you want to work with an expert where you can share all of your thoughts and have a neutral person look at your life with you? Therapy speeds up the process, the learning process, and can help you make choices that lead you to a happier life, because a lot of our life is based on the choices that we make. So I think just even being curious about therapy, or feeling like, hey, I'm not really making choices, I'm not really living the life I want to live, or I'm not feeling as good as I think I can feel, or I'm using all the tools in my toolbox and it's not advancing me in the way that I would like it to, I say, hey, it's similar to personal training. Why wouldn't you want to do it? You don't have to be obese in order to want a physical trainer. So I think any reason is a good reason to go for therapy. I may be biased in that regard, but there's a real range. Just being curious about learning about yourself is a good reason to pick up the phone and make an appointment.
Well, thank you. And that's a really important message to deliver, especially in these times when certainly mental health issues have been even more pronounced than even in the past. So thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with us, Dr. Robi Ludwig.
Thank you.
And now, that was great. Now I'm going to move over to Maya. Maya, you are an extraordinary singer, which you're all going to get to experience before we leave here today. You have a 4-octave range, I believe. And you've also used your gift as you perform around the world by writing and performing songs that inspire people. And the other thing that I really admire about you is that you've used your personal experiences, particularly as you have been a victim of domestic violence, and you have been very outspoken about that, and you've been using that experience to empower other women. So let's talk about your music and what inspires you.
Okay. I mean, as a songwriter, one of the main things that inspires me is inspiration, believe it or not. So what I feel is that music is my calling. It's not just a professional career. And as an empath, I feel deeply and strongly about wanting to help other people. And it's always been that way since I was a child. I can feel things. I'm very sensitive in my own life, but I'm very sensitive and aware of other people's pain. And I just want to get inside and I want to do something to support and help. And I realized that music is what I reach for, and that's my superpower. It's my ability to use what I have access to support and help other people. And this means that I consciously apply my power. I write the songs that I feel really reflect on strong themes that I believe in, and also telling the stories of women that I've met all around the world, representing their voices through my own songs. So all of this kind of integrates, using my music as a tool for activism, not only for entertainment, is an important thing for me.
Well, and that's very powerful. And one of the things I want to ask you about too, and every time I say these statistics, and I've been quoting them for many years, they still startle me, but 1 in 4 women experience physical violence by an intimate partner at some point during their lifetime, 1 in 4. And about 1 in 3 experience some form of sexual violence during their lifetimes. And by the way, this is another issue that women need to talk about and speak up about. some women are embarrassed or ashamed of that. They need not to do that. They need to discuss. And by the way, that's another thing, which was, during the lockdown, it was very, very sad, because that was also, violence was against women was one of the things that was also
increased
on the uptick as well. But you decided to share your very personal experiences with this, which bravo to you. And just tell us a little bit about why that was so important to you.
Okay, so first of all, I really reflected a lot on how did a strong woman find herself in a violent, psychotic relationship. Part of the reason I didn't realize, it's strange, it's very obvious that I was in an abusive relationship, and you're with a person that's using a knife on you, or like I have cuts on my neck and he chokes me on a regular basis. It's pretty obvious that it's an abusive relationship. But I had this idea in my mind that I'm strong. So I'm strong, I can handle it. And it's really a mental trick. I viewed someone in an abusive relationship to be someone who was afraid and not able to leave. And in my position, I was like, I can handle this. And after years, it was like God saying to me, yes, you are strong. Yes, you can handle this, but why? Why are you taking this burden on? Why are you allowing yourself to be in this position? And I often make up little quotes that help me, and I share them with other people. A survivor is someone, a victim is someone whose power was taken away from them. A survivor is someone who's made it through to the other side and has something to celebrate because they've been through it. They've gone through it, but they're on the other side. But a warrior is the person that takes their power back. We don't realize how much we hold on to the pains that are, or the wounds that are within us. And we keep imagining ourselves to be victims and not understanding that we are able to reclaim our power. We're able to reclaim it and take it back and not to give it away. And that psychology, I think if you realize that you are capable of affecting your own life by reclaiming the power, because we start to cut and paste that dynamic into every area of our life, including work, where we don't feel seen, we don't feel heard, we don't feel empowered. And reclaiming power starts within, just knowing that other people's opinions of you need not control you. Other people ignoring you need not control you making a decision to do something or not to do something. I am like that movie, I don't remember the movie, it's about baseball. Anyway, they keep saying, build it and they will come. Build it and they will come. There will be people that don't believe in you and don't see you. But when you succeed, everyone suddenly recognizes your success and sees you. You have to believe before anyone else does. And so reclaiming the power is part of that, not allowing that being marginalized to define you. You define you,
Well, Maya, that's so powerful. And I guarantee you that right now on this call, you probably helped at least one woman listening, because every time I have done any event around the topic of violence against women or around, all the issues that you have just discussed, almost every time I have had someone later reach out to me and say, that changed my life. So, and I know you probably have done that today, and you have probably helped countless other women. So thank you for being, such a strong advocate around this topic. And now I know we have a real treat, because it just ties in with so many of the themes that we've been talking about today and how we feel. And it's a performance of an absolutely beautiful and powerful song that you wrote called Prettiest. So tell us, just introduce the song, and then everybody's going to get to hear it.
Why, thank you. Kind of leading up to introducing Prettiest, I have a life theme, which is, it's a SEAL song, which is, you're never gonna survive unless you get a little crazy. It is giving yourself the permission to not be perfect all the time. First of all, it's a losing battle. It is not possible to be perfect all the time. It's not possible. So if you allow yourself permission to be a little crazy, it takes the pressure out, steam out, and less judgment of ourselves. It's normal to not be okay sometimes. And there's another misconception that I think we all have, many people have, which is that we're supposed to be feeling good and okay at all times. That is not normal. It is normal to have a bad day. It's normal to not feel great sometimes. And to give yourself that permission is important. Prettiest, the song that I wrote, is about this notion of beauty. And I believe that the kind of beauty that lasts from the moment you're born until the moment you leave us is inner beauty. Understanding that your inner power is what makes you feel and be your prettiest. So that's the nature of the song. Prettiest is your truest beauty is something that resonates from within you. And if you understand that, you will operate from a place of power and feel so beautiful, so pretty.
There once was a time when I didn't love myself. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw everybody else. Everything about me wasn't where it ought to be. I still hadn't learned to trust the power in me. But now I am the prettiest, 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 prettiest. Oh, oh, oh. I just might be the prettiest. Something mama would say. Just be yourself, be a leader, not a follower. Know this and you'll get ahead. Leader, not a follower. Like a diamond in the rough, your true beauty is inside. And don't worry when you're all yourself is when you really shine. And now you are the prettiest, 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 prettiest. Oh, oh, oh. You just might be the prettiest, 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 prettiest. You feel like you're the prettiest, 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 prettiest. Oh, oh, oh. You just might be the prettiest, 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 prettiest. Oh, oh, oh. Who you are isn't only what you see. Pretty isn't only for the cover of a magazine. Vogue, Ellen, 17, they never heard of me. But I'm as royal as a queen, 'cause I believe it. Prettiest, 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 prettiest. Oh, oh, oh. But now I am the prettiest, 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 prettiest. Oh, oh, oh. I just might be the prettiest, 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 prettiest. Oh, oh, oh. And now you are the prettiest, 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 prettiest. Oh, oh, oh. You just might be the prettiest, 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 prettiest. Oh, oh, oh. You feel like you're the prettiest, the prettiest, prettiest, prettiest. The prettiest, the na na na, the na na na.
That's fantastic. Maya, you are such a gift to all of us. So thank you for being who you are and sharing your wisdom, your philosophy, and your incredible talent with everyone here today. You're so special.
Thank you.
So yeah, so now I want to go back to our other special ladies, and that's back to our Know You're Crazy team. And we talked a little bit about earlier, actually, Rene mentioned that she had, during this process, she had created a little surprise. And that's actually this incredible, beautiful box set of all the prints. So tell everyone about them, because they're really extraordinary.
Yes. So while I came back to Texas and was, we were deciding how to present this fabulous art, which Viv calls, and I love, her catalog of emotions. That's kind of what the book represents. It's just a catalog of emotions. If the book represents a catalog of emotions, then this box set, which we designed, is like an art exhibit in a box. It's actually 59 fine art prints in a beautifully embossed box. The boxes are numbered, and it houses all of the prints, and it houses the book. And it works well as a coffee table book, a coffee table piece, so that you open it up and it can be your conversation piece or just something beautiful to have in your home. You could also take the images out and frame them, because they're frameable. They are they're on archival paper. They're ready to frame just as they are. They're great gifts. But the box set, when I presented it to Viv and Cindy in New York, Cindy says she kind of blew this up Texas style. They didn't know what was coming. And we all loved it, and we were all on board with it. And then COVID hit. And so, these box sets would have been at every live event we did, and now, so they've kind of come secondary to the book, which was never really the intention. They're beautiful sets, and for $250, Cindy, if I'm wrong, tell me, or $295, something like that, you get these 59 pieces of art, plus a book, plus this beautiful box set, and it really is just a little art exhibit. It's really beautifully done, and it was a great way to exhibit Viv's art and her little Mad Women, and it's just super fun, and it's fun to have around. So I hope you guys will check.
It's so great, Rene, what you did. And I actually happened to be lucky enough that I was gifted with a set of these, and they're extraordinary. And I'm actually in the process of I'm picking out some of my favorites to frame, and they're going to be in my office. So I'm very excited about that. And then I just want to put another little plug in here, because here's a great way that you could get this box set right now, because I'm involved with a nonprofit organization that's called Plan International, and they work in over 70 countries around the world for the rights of girls. And right now we're doing a fabulous online auction, and the team here has generously donated a box set of the prints, and you can go there right now and bid on it, and it's a win-win for everyone, because not only are you going to help girls around the world, but you'll get this incredible, beautiful box set of prints. And I think we just put up the link to that auction too.
And can I say, Cheryl, real quick on the box set? These box sets come numbered, and they also come with an authenticity sheet signed by Viv. And so they're a pretty valuable little
exactly. There's only 500, right? There's 500 in the set. So
and all numbered. So for art collectors, it's a cool piece.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just beautiful. So now I want to move back over to Vivienne, because as I said, when we started this, I said the Know You're Crazy is so much more than just a book and the art, and you've heard so much of that today. But it really is a movement, and it's so exciting because they are doing so much stuff, this team. I am so happy to have gotten to know these amazing ladies, but they're doing so much around all of this. And there's an anthem now that goes with this movement, and we're going to actually premiere it. The world premiere is today. I'm not sure if it's actually the world premiere, but I think it's certainly Women's History Month world premiere. So Vivienne, tell us a little bit about the song, and then you're going to hear it, and I promise you're going to love it.
But no, last year I was working on a lot of a cappella versions of a few songs, amongst which were Hold Your Head Up, written by Chris White and Rod Argent. And when we started an Indiegogo campaign, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to put together an all-female a cappella version of this song, which is like an anthem to women, the resilience and the strength of women. And so that was part of the Indiegogo campaign, actually.
And it was a huge hit in the 70s, right? People might have missed that.
It was a huge hit in the 70s for Argent. And what you will hear now is still the demo version, but it is evolving, and hopefully this won't be the last that you hear of it. There'll be, you know, there's more aspects to it than you will hear right now. But this is what we have right now, and it's a perfect anthem for the Know You're Crazy group.
Well, that was just awesome. And what a great way to end this phenomenal event today with Hold Your Head High, women everywhere. So I can't thank my guests enough for joining me to celebrate Women's History Month. You've all been so inspiring, empowering, uplifting. And I thank everyone who joined us today on Zoom and Facebook Live. And here's to women everywhere. We truly have the power to change the world, and that is in the process now, and you can see it happening, and it will happen. And here's to each and every one of us to claiming your power and standing up and making a difference in the world. And every one of you here today is doing that. So thank you. Love you all.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Okay, and also we'll be sharing all the links to buy the book, buy the box set, contribute to the auction. And again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye now.